On the day I thought would be my victory, my husband Adrian stood in court accusing me of infidelity and demanding everything we built together. He painted me as a cheating wife who abandoned our family. But then our 10-year-old son Ethan stood up in the courtroom and said something that made everyone freeze. "Your Honor, I have proof my dad is lying about everything." The judge looked stunned as Ethan pulled out a small voice recorder from his pocket. Before the story begins, please leave us a comment telling us which state or city you are watching from. Do not forget to like and subscribe so this channel can grow and bring you more exciting stories. That Tuesday morning started like every morning in Sophia's life for the past 8 years. She woke up at 5:30, her alarm barely audible so it wouldn't wake Adrian. The house was silent and cold in that pre-dawn darkness. Sophia moved through the bedroom like a ghost, gathering her nursing scrubs from the chair where she laid them out the night before. She glanced back at the bed where Adrian lay sleeping, his back turned to her side of the bed as it had been for months now. There was a time when he would pull her back into bed, when they would steal a few more minutes together before the day began. Those days felt like they belonged to different people. Sophia went downstairs, her footsteps silent on the carpeted stairs. In the kitchen, she started the coffee maker and began preparing breakfast. It was routine, mechanical. Toast for Ethan, oatmeal for Adrian because he'd been complaining about his cholesterol, and a protein shake for herself because she wouldn't have time to eat properly until her lunch break at the hospital. As the coffee brewed, Sophia made Ethan's lunch, the same sandwich he liked with the crusts cut off, an apple, crackers, and a small cookie. She wrote a little note like she did every day. "Have a great day at school. Love, Mom." She tucked it into the lunchbox. At 6:15, she heard Adrian's alarm go off upstairs. Heavy footsteps crossed the floor above her head. The shower ran. Sophia poured coffee into his favorite mug, added 1 sugar and a splash of cream exactly how he liked it. She set it on the table next to his breakfast. Adrian came down at 6:30, dressed in his business suit, his hair still damp from the shower. He looked at his phone as he walked into the kitchen, didn't look at Sophia. "Morning," Sophia said, softly. Adrian grunted in response. He sat down, picked up the coffee mug, took a sip, and made a face. "It's too weak today," he said flatly. "I'm sorry, I can make another pot," Sophia offered. "Don't bother, I'll get some at the office." Adrian pushed the mug away and picked at his oatmeal without enthusiasm. Sophia stood by the counter, her own coffee growing cold in her hands. She wanted to ask him about his day, about the business trip he'd just returned from, about anything. But the wall between them felt too high to climb. "Is Ethan up?" Adrian asked, still looking at his phone. "I'll wake him in a few minutes. He has a field trip today," Sophia answered. Adrian stood up abruptly, leaving half his breakfast uneaten. He grabbed his briefcase from the chair. "I have meetings all day. I'll be home late." "How late?" Sophia asked. "Don't know. Don't wait up." Adrian walked past her, toward the front door. No kiss goodbye, no have a good day, just the sound of the door closing and his car starting in the driveway. Sophia stood in the empty kitchen, the morning sun just beginning to filter through the windows, and felt completely alone. She dumped Adrian's barely touched breakfast in the trash and went upstairs to wake Ethan. Her son's room was a mess of books, toys, and sports equipment. Ethan was still sleeping, his face peaceful, one arm hanging off the bed. "Ethan, honey, time to wake up," Sophia said gently, sitting on the edge of his bed. Ethan stirred, opened his eyes, and smiled when he saw her. "Morning, Mom." "Morning, sweetheart. You have your field trip today, remember?" Sophia brushed his hair back from his forehead. "The Science Museum." Ethan sat up excitedly. "Did you sign my permission slip?" "It's in your backpack, all signed." Sophia smiled. This at least was pure and simple. Ethan's love for her was uncomplicated, unchanged. While Ethan got ready, Sophia quickly changed into her scrubs. She was a nurse at City General Hospital, working 12-hour shifts in the emergency department. It was exhausting work, but she loved it. It gave her purpose, identity, beyond being Adrian's wife. She and Ethan left the house together at 7:30. She dropped him at school, watched him run toward his friends with his backpack bouncing, and felt that familiar ache in her chest. He was growing up so fast. She arrived at the hospital at 8, clocked in, and threw herself into the chaos of the ER. Broken bones, chest pains, a car accident victim, a child with a severe allergic reaction. The hours blurred together in a symphony of beeping monitors, urgent voices, and the constant motion of saving lives. It was during her lunch break, sitting in the staff cafeteria with her cold sandwich, that her phone buzzed. A text message from an unknown number. Sophia almost didn't open it, thinking it was spam, but something made her click on it. What she saw made her drop her sandwich. It was a photograph of Adrian. He was sitting in a restaurant, an expensive one by the looks of it, with white tablecloths and wine glasses, but he wasn't alone. Across from him sat a woman Sophia had never seen before. She was young, maybe late 20s, with perfectly styled blonde hair and a dress that probably cost more than Sophia's monthly salary. Adrian was leaning across the table, holding the woman's hand, smiling in a way he hadn't smiled at Sophia in years. Below the photo was a message in cold clinical text. Thought you should know who your husband really is. This isn't the first time. Sophia's hands started shaking. She stared at the photo, zooming in, hoping somehow it was a mistake. Maybe it was someone who looked like Adrian. Maybe it was photoshopped. But no, it was definitely him. The wedding ring on his finger, the tie she'd given him for his birthday last year, the small scar on his left eyebrow from a childhood accident. It was Adrian. The woman across from him was gazing at him with obvious affection. Their fingers were intertwined. There was a bottle of champagne on the table. Sophia felt like she couldn't breathe. The cafeteria suddenly felt too hot, too crowded, too loud. She stood up abruptly, grabbed her phone, and rushed to the bathroom. She locked herself in a stall and let the tears come. How long had this been going on? Who was this woman? Was this why Adrian had been so cold, so distant? All those late nights at the office, all those business trips, had they been lies? Sophia tried to call the number that sent the message, but it went straight to voicemail with no greeting. She texted back asking who they were, but got no response. After 20 minutes, Sophia forced herself to compose herself. She couldn't fall apart, not here, not at work. She had patients depending on her. She washed her face, fixed her hair, and went back to the ER. But for the rest of her shift, her mind was 1,000 miles away. That evening, Sophia picked up Ethan from school. He was bursting with excitement about the museum, about the dinosaur fossils, and the planetarium show. Sophia listened, smiled, asked questions, but inside, she was numb. They got home at 6. Adrian's car wasn't in the driveway. Late meetings, he'd said. Or was he with her? Sophia made dinner for herself and Ethan, mac and cheese, because that's what he wanted, and she didn't have the energy for anything else. They ate together at the kitchen table. Ethan chattered about his day, about his friends, about a funny thing his teacher said. Sophia held on to every word, using his innocence as an anchor to keep from drowning. After dinner, Ethan went to do his homework. Sophia sat on the couch, the photo still open on her phone, studying every detail. She noticed the restaurant name on a menu visible in the background. La Belle Maison, an upscale French place downtown. She Googled it. Reservations required. Prix-fixe menu starting at $200 per person. Adrian had never taken her there. He always said they needed to save money, be responsible. At 9 o'clock, Sophia heard Adrian's car. She quickly closed the photo and put her phone face down. Her heart was pounding. Should she confront him now? Should she wait? She didn't know what to do. Adrian came through the door, loosening his tie. He looked tired, but also somehow satisfied, like a cat that ate the canary. "Hey," he said casually, dropping his briefcase by the door. "How was work?" "Busy," Sophia replied, her voice surprisingly steady. "Yours?" "Long, tedious meetings." Adrian walked past her toward the kitchen. "Is there any dinner left?" "There's leftover pasta in the fridge." Adrian heated up the pasta, ate it standing at the counter while scrolling through his phone, and then announced he was going to take a shower and go to bed. He didn't ask about her day. He didn't ask about Ethan. He didn't even really look at her. As Sophia listened to the water running upstairs, she made a decision. She wasn't going to confront him yet. She needed more information, more proof. Because if she was going to face this, she needed to be absolutely sure. And she needed to protect Ethan. That night, lying in bed next to Adrian, who fell asleep within minutes, Sophia stared at the ceiling. Her mind raced with questions, fears, and a growing anger that felt like fire in her chest. She had given Adrian everything. She had supported his career, raised their son, kept their home, worked full-time to contribute financially. And this is how he repaid her? Sophia didn't sleep that night. She lay there planning, thinking, preparing for a battle she never wanted to fight. The next few days were torture for Sophia. She went through the motions of her life like an actress playing a role, smiling when she should smile, speaking when she should speak, but inside she was screaming. She couldn't stop thinking about the photo, about the mysterious woman, about all the lies Adrian must have told. She wanted answers, but didn't know how to get them without revealing what she knew. On Friday evening, Adrian announced he had another business trip the following week to Chicago, 3 days. Sophia's stomach turned. Was it really business, or was it her? But Sophia just nodded and said, "Okay, I'll make sure everything is handled here." That Saturday, while Adrian was supposedly at the gym, Sophia did something she never thought she'd do. She went through his things. She started with his home office, carefully searching through his desk drawers, looking for anything suspicious. Credit card statements, receipts, anything. But Adrian was meticulous. Everything was organized and filed away. Then she checked his computer. It was password protected. She tried their anniversary date, Ethan's birthday, common passwords. Nothing worked. Frustrated, Sophia sat back in Adrian's desk chair, looking around the room. Where would he hide something? Her eyes landed on a locked drawer in the filing cabinet. She'd never paid attention to it before. Adrian always said it was just old tax documents. Sophia searched for the key, finding it taped under the desk drawer. A hiding place so cliched almost made her laugh. She opened the locked drawer with trembling hands. Inside were manila folders, neatly labeled. But these weren't tax documents. The first folder contained credit card statements for a card Sophia had never seen before, a separate account in Adrian's name only. She scanned through the charges. Jewelry stores, expensive restaurants, a hotel, flowers, another hotel, lingerie boutique, more hotels, all from the past 6 months. Thousands and thousands of dollars. The dates matched up with times Adrian said he was working late or on business trips. The second folder was even more damaging. It contained printed emails between Adrian and someone named Melissa Thornton. The emails went back almost a year. They started professionally enough discussing a business project, but quickly became personal, then intimate, then explicitly sexual. Sophia felt sick reading them. Adrian wrote things to this woman he'd never said to Sophia. He called her beautiful, exciting, the best thing that ever happened to him. In one email from 2 months ago, Adrian wrote something that shattered Sophia's heart completely. The message read like he meant every word, expressing frustration with his marriage and comparing Sophia unfavorably to Melissa in cruel detail. Sophia had to put the papers down. She ran to the bathroom and vomited. When she could breathe again, she went back to the office and photographed every single document with her phone, every statement, every email, everything. She put everything back exactly as she found it, locked the drawer, returned the key to its hiding place. Then she sat on the floor of Adrian's office and cried until she had no tears left. She had her proof now. Adrian was having an affair. It had been going on for almost a year. And he'd been using their money she helped earn with her long shifts at the hospital, to wine and dine his mistress. When Sophia finally composed herself, she realized something else. She needed help. She couldn't do this alone. That evening, after Ethan was in bed and Adrian was watching television in the living room, Sophia went to her bedroom and called her best friend Rachel. Rachel had been Sophia's roommate in nursing school, had been her maid of honor at her wedding, and was now a nurse practitioner at a different hospital across town. Rachel answered on the second ring, sounding cheerful, asking what was up. Sophia's voice broke immediately, and everything came spilling out. The mysterious photo, the credit card statements, the emails, all of it. Rachel listened without interrupting, and when Sophia finished, she said in a firm voice, "Sophia, you need a lawyer, like yesterday." "I know, but I don't even know where to start." Rachel said she knew someone,
a divorce attorney named Patricia Hall, who'd helped Rachel's sister through a messy divorce last year. Rachel promised to get Sophia the contact information. And Sophia, Rachel added seriously, don't let Adrian know you know. Not yet. Not until you've talked to a lawyer and have a plan. Men like this, when they're cornered, they can get dangerous. Dangerous? Adrian? I couldn't imagine it. You never really know people, Rachel said darkly. Just promise me you'll be careful. Sophia promised. Over the weekend, Sophia wore a mask of normalcy, so convincing she almost fooled herself. She made breakfast, did laundry, took Ethan to his soccer game on Sunday where Adrian didn't show up, came home and made dinner. Adrian was home but distant, always on his phone, smiling at messages Sophia now knew were probably from Melissa. On Monday morning, Rachel texted her Patricia Hall's phone number. Sophia called during her lunch break at the hospital, sitting in her car in the parking lot for privacy. Patricia Hall had a kind but no-nonsense voice, the voice of someone who'd seen it all and wouldn't be shocked by anything. Sophia explained her situation, sent over the photos she'd taken of the documents. Patricia was silent for a moment after reviewing everything, then said, "Sophia, this is pretty clear-cut. Infidelity with significant financial evidence. That's good for your case. But I need to ask you something important." "What?" Sophia asked. "How do you want to handle this? Do you want to try to save the marriage, or do you want out?" Patricia's question was direct. Sophia didn't hesitate. Her answer was immediate and certain. She wanted out. Patricia scheduled a meeting for that Thursday evening. She advised Sophia to keep documenting everything, take note of Adrian's whereabouts, keep copies of all financial records she could access, and most importantly, don't let Adrian know she was planning anything. Men like your husband often try to hide assets once they know divorce is coming. We need to move carefully but quickly. That week felt like the longest of Sophia's life. She went to work, took care of Ethan, smiled at Adrian while inside she was planning her escape. On Tuesday night, Adrian left for his business trip to Chicago. He kissed Ethan on the head, barely acknowledged Sophia, and drove off. Sophia immediately called the hotel Adrian had claimed he'd be staying at, the Marriott downtown Chicago. She asked to be connected to Adrian Carter's room. The receptionist checked and said, "I'm sorry, we don't have anyone registered under that name." "Can you check again? He should have checked in today," Sophia pressed. The receptionist checked again, more thoroughly this time, and confirmed no Adrian Carter, no reservation, nothing. He'd lied. He wasn't even trying to cover his tracks anymore. That night, Sophia couldn't sleep. She lay in the empty bed, staring at the ceiling, and for the first time in weeks, she didn't feel sad. She felt angry, a cold, clear, focused anger that sharpened her resolve. On Thursday evening, Sophia met with Patricia Hall in person. Patricia's office was modest but professional, located in a building downtown. Patricia herself was in her 50s, with short gray hair and sharp eyes behind designer glasses. She shook Sophia's hand firmly and gestured for her to sit. They talked for 2 hours, going over everything in detail: the marriage timeline, the finances, the affair, Ethan's custody, what Sophia wanted. Patricia laid out the process, explaining how divorce worked in their state, what to expect, how long it might take. "Given the evidence of infidelity and financial misconduct, you have a strong case," Patricia said. "We'll file for divorce on grounds of adultery. We'll seek primary custody of Ethan, child support, spousal support, and an equitable division of assets, which, given his behavior, should favor you significantly." "What about the money he spent on her?" Sophia asked. "That's marital asset dissipation," Patricia explained. "Money spent on an affair can be recovered. We'll calculate every dollar he spent on Melissa Thornton and demand it back." Sophia nodded, taking it all in. It felt surreal, sitting here planning the end of her marriage. "When do we file?" Sophia asked. "As soon as you're ready," Patricia replied. "That I'd suggest we do it while he's still unaware. The element of surprise can be advantageous." Sophia thought about Ethan, about how this would affect him, and her heart ached. But she also knew that staying in this broken marriage, teaching her son that this was what love looked like, would be worse. "Let's do it," Sophia said firmly. "File the papers." Patricia smiled, a warrior's smile. "I'll have everything ready by next week. In the meantime, I need you to open a separate bank account in your name only. Start setting aside money from your paychecks. Don't take from joint accounts yet. That can look bad, but protect your own income." Sophia agreed to everything, feeling like she was finally taking control of her life again. When she left Patricia's office, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Sophia stood on the sidewalk for a moment, breathing in the cool evening air, and felt something she hadn't felt in months, that felt like hope. Adrian returned from his business trip on Friday afternoon, looking tanned and relaxed in a way that made Sophia's blood boil. He'd obviously had a wonderful time with Melissa, while Sophia had been working double shifts at the hospital and taking care of their son alone. But Sophia kept her face neutral, asked how the trip went, and listened to his lies about meetings and clients and exhausting presentations. That weekend, Sophia followed Patricia's advice and opened a new bank account at a different bank, one Adrian didn't use. She set up direct deposit for her nursing paychecks to go into this new account. She also made copies of every important document she could find: birth certificates, tax returns, mortgage papers, insurance policies, everything. She stored the copies at Rachel's house for safekeeping. On Monday, Patricia called with news. The divorce papers were ready. They would be filing them with the court that afternoon, and Adrian would be served at his office the next day by a professional process server. "Are you sure you're ready for this?" Patricia asked one final time. "I'm sure," Sophia replied, without hesitation. "Then let's do this," Patricia said. That Tuesday, Sophia was at work when her phone rang. It was Adrian, and he was screaming. "What the hell is this, Sophia? Divorce papers? Are you insane?" Sophia had been expecting this call, had rehearsed what she would say, but hearing his rage still made her hands shake. "Adrian, I know about Melissa," Sophia said calmly. "I know everything." There was a pause, a beat of silence where Sophia could almost hear Adrian's mind racing to figure out how much she knew and how to spin it. "I don't know what you're talking about," Adrian said, but his voice had lost some of its conviction. "I have the credit card statements. I have the emails. I have photographs," Sophia said, her voice steady. "Don't lie to me anymore." Another pause, and then Adrian's voice changed completely, becoming cold and calculated. "You went through my private things? That's a violation, Sophia. Those emails are confidential." "They're evidence of adultery," Sophia shot back. "You can spin it however you want, Adrian, but you cheated. You lied. You used our money on your mistress. It's over." Adrian laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "You think you can divorce me and get away with it? I'm the one who earns the real money in this family. Your little nursing job is nothing compared to what I make. You'll get nothing." "We'll see what the judge says. And by the way, I want you out of the house." "It's my house," Adrian spat. "Actually, it's our house, and Patricia says I can ask you to leave," Sophia corrected. "Pack a bag, Adrian. You can stay with Melissa since you love her so much." Adrian's voice dropped to something dangerous and threatening. "You're going to regret this, Sophia. I promise you that." He hung up. Sophia stood in the hospital break room, her phone still pressed to her ear, and realized she was shaking. But she wasn't scared. She was angry, and anger was so much stronger than sadness. That evening, when Sophia got home, Adrian's car was in the driveway and she braced herself for a confrontation. But when she walked in, Adrian was calm, almost eerily so. He was sitting at the kitchen table with a folder in front of him. "We need to talk," Adrian said without preamble. "I think we should," Sophia agreed, setting down her purse. "Sit down," Adrian gestured to the chair across from him. Sophia sat, wary, watching Adrian's face for clues about what he was thinking. Adrian opened the folder and slid a document across the table to her. "I've thought about your demands, and I've decided to make this easy. I'm willing to agree to a divorce." Sophia picked up the document. It was a separation agreement, already drawn up, probably by Adrian's own lawyer. As she read through it, her heart sunk. According to this agreement, Adrian would keep the house and most of the assets. Sophia would get a minimal amount of spousal support for only 2 years. And most devastating of all, Adrian was demanding primary custody of Ethan, with Sophia getting only supervised visitation every other weekend. "You can't be serious," Sophia said, looking up at Adrian in disbelief. "I'm completely serious," Adrian replied coldly. "Sign it, and we can end this quickly and quietly. Or fight it, and I'll drag you through court and make sure you lose everything." "Why would I ever sign this?" Sophia demanded. "Because if you don't, I'll prove in court that you're an unfit mother," Adrian said with a cruel smile. "What are you talking about?" Sophia felt ice forming in her veins. Adrian pulled out another folder, this one thicker, and spread its contents across the table. Photographs, documents, printed social media posts. Sophia's hands trembled as she looked through them. They were photos of their house that looked messy and neglected, taken at angles that made it look worse than it was. They were photos of Sophia herself, looking exhausted and disheveled, clearly taken without her knowledge when she'd just gotten home from overnight shifts at the hospital. There was a document from someone claiming to be a neighbor, saying they'd seen Ethan playing outside alone, unsupervised, multiple times, which was a complete lie. There was even a psychological evaluation, supposedly from a therapist, claiming that Ethan had expressed concerns about his mother's emotional unavailability. "This is all fake," Sophia said, her voice shaking with rage. "It's all lies." "Is it?" Adrian leaned back in his chair, looking satisfied with himself. "Or is it the truth about a mother who works too much, who's never home, who leaves her 10-year-old son to fend for himself while she chases her career?" "I work to support this family," Sophia shouted. "I work because we need the money. You know that." "A jury won't see it that way," Adrian said. "They'll see a neglectful mother who put her job before her child, and I have witnesses who will testify to that." "What witnesses?" Sophia demanded. "You'll find out in court," Adrian smirked, "unless you sign this agreement right now and save us both the trouble." Sophia stared at the separation agreement, at the clauses that would rob her of her son, her home, her future. She looked at Adrian, this man she'd loved and trusted for 12 years, and saw a complete stranger, a monster. "I'm not signing anything," Sophia said, standing up. "Get out of my sight." Adrian's face darkened. "You're making a huge mistake, Sophia." "The only mistake I made was marrying you," Sophia replied. She walked out of the kitchen, went upstairs to Ethan's room, and locked the door behind her. Ethan was at his desk doing homework, wearing his headphones, oblivious to the war being waged downstairs. Sophia sat on his bed and watched him. This beautiful boy who was the only good thing to come from her marriage. She would fight for him with everything she had, she swore to herself, no matter what Adrian threw at her. That night, Adrian left the house, presumably to stay with Melissa, and Sophia immediately called Patricia and told her everything about the fake evidence and the threatening separation agreement. Patricia listened carefully and then said in a grim tone, "This is worse than I thought. He's been planning this for a while. Those fake documents, the manufactured evidence, it takes time to create all that." "What do I do?" Sophia asked desperately. "We fight back," Patricia said firmly. "But I need to be honest with you, Sophia. This is going to get ugly. Adrian is playing dirty, and we need to be prepared for him to get even dirtier." "I don't care," Sophia said. "I'm not letting him take Ethan." "Good," Patricia replied. "Then here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to get our own psychological evaluation of you and Ethan from a reputable professional. Second, we're going to depose every witness Adrian claims to have and tear their testimonies apart. Third, we're going to expose his affair in full detail to show the court exactly what kind of man he is." Sophia felt a small spark of hope. "You think we can win?" "I think we have the truth on our side, and in my experience, The truth usually wins. Eventually. Over the next few weeks, the legal battle intensified, in ways Sophia could never have imagined. Adrian hired one of the most expensive and aggressive divorce attorneys in the city, a man named Robert Blackwell, who had a reputation for destroying opposing parties in court. The court date was set for 6 weeks away. In that time, both sides would gather evidence, depose witnesses, and prepare their cases. Sophia underwent a psychological evaluation with Dr. Miranda Chen, a respected child psychologist. Dr. Chen spent hours with Sophia, asking about her relationship with Ethan, her work schedule, her parenting style, everything. Dr. Chen also spent time with Ethan alone, observing how he interacted with his mother, asking him questions about his home life. When Dr. Chen's report came back, it was overwhelmingly positive for Sophia, describing her as a devoted, capable mother with a strong bond with her son. Ethan, according to Dr. Chen, was well-adjusted, happy, and showed no signs of neglect whatsoever. But Adrian's side had their own psychologist, a man named Dr. Richard Foster, who wrote a scathing report claiming that Sophia's long work hours constituted abandonment and that Ethan would be better off with his father. Patricia explained that these dueling expert testimonies were common in custody battles, and it would be up to the judge to decide who to believe. Meanwhile, Adrian's lawyer, Robert Blackwell, was making Sophia's life hell. He filed motion after motion, requesting Sophia's phone records, her social media accounts, her work schedules, her financial records, everything. He was trying to find something, anything, to use against her. He deposed Sophia's coworkers, asking if they'd ever heard Sophia complain about being a mother or express regret about having Ethan. He tracked down Sophia's old friends from nursing school, people she hadn't talked to in years, trying to dig up dirt from her past. It was invasive and humiliating, but Patricia assured Sophia it was all part of the process. "He's throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks," Patricia explained. "But we're doing the same to him." And indeed they were. Patricia deposed Melissa Thornton, Adrian's mistress, and the deposition was explosive. Melissa, faced with legal consequences for lying under oath, admitted to the affair and revealed that Adrian had promised to leave Sophia months ago and marry her. She also revealed, perhaps accidentally, that Adrian had taken money from the joint account and given it to her as gifts. Patricia also tracked down the so-called neighbor who'd claimed to see Ethan unsupervised. Under questioning, the neighbor admitted that Adrian had paid him $500 to write the statement and that he'd never actually witnessed anything of the sort. One by one, Adrian's fabricated evidence was falling apart, but he wasn't done fighting. 2 weeks before the court date, something happened that changed everything. Sophia picked up Ethan from school as usual, and on the drive home, Ethan was unusually quiet. "Everything okay, honey?" Sophia asked, glancing at him in the rearview mirror. Ethan nodded, but didn't say anything. When they got home, Ethan went straight to his room instead of getting a snack like he usually did. Sophia gave him some space, thinking maybe he had a bad day at school. But an hour later, when she went to check on him, she found Ethan sitting on his bed crying. "Ethan, what's wrong?" Sophia rushed to his side, pulling him into a hug. Ethan sobbed into her shoulder, his whole body shaking, and through his tears, he said something that made Sophia's blood run cold. Ethan told her that Adrian had come to his school that day during lunch and had taken him aside to talk to him privately, which the school had allowed since Adrian was still legally his father and had custody rights. Adrian had told Ethan that the divorce was happening because Sophia didn't love them anymore, that Sophia wanted to send Ethan away so she could focus on her career, and that Ethan needed to tell the judge he wanted to live with his father or else he'd never see either parent again. Sophia felt rage unlike anything she'd ever experienced, a burning fury that Adrian would manipulate their son like this, would use Ethan's love and fear against him. "Ethan, listen to me," Sophia said, holding his face in her hands so he had to look at her. "None of that is true. I love you more than anything in the world. I would never send you away. Your dad is lying to you because he's scared." "But Dad said," Ethan's voice trembled. "I know what he said, but it's not true,"
Sophia insisted. "I promise you, no matter what happens, you will always be with me. Always." Ethan nodded, wiping his eyes, but Sophia could see the confusion and fear still there. She held him until he stopped crying, and then she called Patricia immediately. "He's touching the child," Patricia said angrily after Sophia explained what happened. "That's parental alienation, and it's illegal. We need to document this." "How?" Sophia asked. "Has Ethan ever recorded anything on his phone or tablet?" Patricia asked. Sophia thought about it. Ethan had an old tablet he used for games and schoolwork, and he'd recently become interested in making videos with his friends. "He has a tablet," Sophia confirmed. "Tell him to keep it with him at all times," Patricia advised. "If Adrian talks to him again, Ethan should try to record it. Audio, video, anything. We need evidence of what Adrian is saying to him." Sophia wasn't sure she liked the idea of involving Ethan more in this battle, but she also knew they needed to protect him from Adrian's manipulation. That evening, after dinner, Sophia sat down with Ethan and had a difficult conversation. She explained in age-appropriate terms that sometimes adults don't tell the truth when they're angry, and that if his dad said things that made him confused or scared, he should record it. "You mean, like, with my tablet?" Ethan asked. "Yes, like you do when you make videos with your friends," Sophia explained. "Just keep it nearby, and if Dad talks to you about the divorce again, try to record what he says. Can you do that?" Ethan nodded slowly, understanding the seriousness. "Am I going to have to choose who to live with?" he asked quietly. Sophia's heart broke. "The judge will decide what's best for you," she said honestly. "But I want you to know that no matter what, I will always be your mom, and I will always love you." Over the next week, Adrian continued his campaign of manipulation. He called Ethan almost every night, telling him how much better life would be living with him and Melissa, how they'd buy him whatever he wanted, how he wouldn't have to follow all his mother's strict rules. Ethan, following Sophie's instructions, recorded several of these conversations on his tablet. The recordings were heartbreaking to listen to, Adrian's voice smooth and persuasive, promising Ethan everything, while subtly tearing down Sophia's character. In one particularly damning recording, Adrian said something that would later prove crucial in court, essentially admitting that he was willing to buy Ethan's testimony and that he didn't care about what was actually best for Ethan, only about winning. Patricia was ecstatic when Sophia brought her the recordings. "This is gold," Patricia said. "This proves parental alienation, manipulation, and shows his true character. This changes everything." The court day arrived, and Sophia felt like she was walking to her own execution. The courtroom was cold and formal, with wooden benches and a high judge's bench that made everyone feel small. Adrian sat on the opposite side of the room with Robert Blackwell, looking confident in an expensive suit. Melissa was there too, sitting in the gallery, which made Sophia's stomach turn. The judge, an older woman named Judge Helen Morrison, entered and everyone stood. Judge Morrison had a reputation for being fair but tough, someone who didn't tolerate nonsense in her courtroom. The trial began with opening statements. Robert Blackwell went first, painting Sophia as a career-obsessed woman who neglected her son and her marriage, driving Adrian to seek comfort elsewhere. It was a twisted version of reality that made Sophia want to scream. Patricia's opening statement was more straightforward, focusing on Adrian's infidelity, his financial misconduct, and his manipulation of Ethan. Over the next 2 days, both sides presented their cases. Adrian testified first, playing the role of the wounded husband perfectly. He claimed Sophia had become cold and distant, that he was never home, that he'd tried to make the marriage work but eventually gave up. He admitted to the affair, but framed it as a consequence of Sophia's neglect, not the cause of the marriage's breakdown. Patricia cross-examined him ruthlessly, confronting him with the credit card statements showing he'd spent over $50,000 on Melissa for the past year. She asked him about specific emails where he called Sophia degrading names and had complained about being stuck with her. Adrian stammered through his answers, his polished facade cracking.
Then came Sophia's turn to testify. She was nervous, her hands shaking as she was sworn in, but Patricia guided her through her testimony carefully. Sophia explained her work schedule, how she'd always prioritized Ethan despite her demanding job, how she'd had no idea about Adrian's affair until she received the anonymous photo. Robert Blackwell's cross-examination was brutal. He questioned every aspect of Sophia's life, her work hours, her parenting decisions, her finances. He tried to make her seem negligent and unstable. "Isn't it true, Mrs. Carter, that you regularly work 12-hour shifts, leaving your son in the care of others?" Blackwell asked. "I work as a nurse to support my family, and Ethan is always with trusted caregivers, usually his father when I'm at work." "But you're not there to tuck him in at night, are you?" "Not when I work night shifts, no, but I'm there every other night, and I make sure to spend quality time with him whenever I can." Blackwell continued trying to chip away at her credibility, but Sophia held her ground. Then came the expert witnesses. Dr. Richard Foster, Adrian's psychiatrist, testified about his concerns regarding Sophia's parenting, but under Patricia's cross-examination, he admitted he'd never actually observed Sophia and Ethan together and had based his entire evaluation on information provided by Adrian. Dr. Miranda Chen, Sophia's psychiatrist, testified to the strong bond between Sophia and Ethan and the lack of any evidence of neglect or harm. The trial was going relatively evenly, each side scoring points, when Patricia called her surprise witness, the man who'd been paid by Adrian to write the false neighbor statement. He testified that Adrian had offered him money to lie and that he'd never seen Ethan unsupervised even once. Adrian's face went pale as his fabricated evidence crumbled in front of the judge. But the real turning point came on the third day of the trial. Patricia stood up and said, "Your Honor, we'd like to call Ethan Carter to the stand." Sophia's heart stopped, looking at Patricia in panic, but Patricia had warned her this might be necessary. Judge Morrison looked concerned. "Is that absolutely necessary, counsel? The child is only 10 years old. Your Honor, given the allegations of parental alienation and the child's well-being being the center of this case, I believe it's crucial to hear from Ethan himself." "Very well," Judge Morrison agreed reluctantly, "but I'll keep this brief, and I won't tolerate any harsh questioning of the child." Ethan was brought into the courtroom, and Sophia felt tears spring into her eyes seeing her son in this awful place. Ethan looked small and scared in his button-up shirt and tie, walking to the witness stand with his head down. Judge Morrison smiled at him kindly. "Hello, Ethan. I'm Judge Morrison. You don't need to be nervous, okay? I just want to ask you a few questions about your mom and dad. Is that all right?" Ethan nodded, his voice barely a whisper, as he said, "Yes, ma'am." Patricia approached gently. "Ethan, can you tell the judge about your relationship with your mom?" Ethan looked at Sophia, and his eyes filled with tears. "My mom is the best," he said softly. "She takes care of me. She makes me lunch every day with notes in it. She helps me with my homework. She comes to all my soccer games, even when she's tired from work." "And your relationship with your dad?" Patricia asked. Ethan hesitated, looking at Adrian, who was staring at him intensely. "My dad is okay," Ethan said carefully. "But he's been different lately. He says things about Mom that aren't true." Robert Blackwell objected, calling it hearsay, but Judge Morrison overruled him. "I want to hear what the child has to say." "What kinds of things does your dad say?" Patricia asked gently. Ethan swallowed hard. "He says Mom doesn't love me anymore. He says she wants to send me away. But that's not true. Mom loves me. I know she does." Adrian shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his lawyer whispering urgently to him. "Ethan," Patricia said, pulling something from her bag, "is this your tablet?" She held up the old cracked tablet Ethan had used to record his conversations with Adrian. Ethan's eyes widened and he nodded. "Yes, that's mine." "Your Honor," Patricia said, turning to the judge, "we'd like to enter into evidence several recordings made by Ethan of conversations with his father. These recordings demonstrate a clear pattern of parental alienation and manipulation. Robert Blackwell jumped to his feet. Objection. These recordings were made without my client's knowledge or consent. They're inadmissible. But Patricia was ready. Your Honor, in our state, one-party consent is legal for recording conversations. Ethan was a party to these conversations, and given his age and the circumstances, these recordings are admissible, especially in a family court matter where the child's best interests are paramount. Judge Morrison considered this. I'll allow it. Play the recordings. The courtroom fell silent as the first recording played. Adrian's voice filled the room, smooth and manipulative, telling Ethan how much better life would be with him, how Sophia was too busy with work to really care about Ethan, how Ethan should tell the judge he wanted to live with his dad. Sophia watched Adrian's face drain of color as his own words condemned him. The second recording was even worse, the one where Adrian admitted he was willing to buy Ethan's love and loyalty, where he didn't care about what was best for Ethan, only about beating Sophia. When the recordings ended, the courtroom was utterly silent. Judge Morrison looked at Adrian with barely concealed disgust. Mr. Carter, do you have anything to say about these recordings? She asked coldly. Adrian stammered, trying to explain them away as misunderstandings taken out of context, but it was too late. The damage was done. Everyone in that courtroom, including the judge, had heard Adrian manipulating his own son for his own selfish purposes. Judge Morrison turned to Ethan, her expression softening. Ethan, thank you for being so brave. You can step down now. As Ethan walked past the witness stand, he stopped suddenly and looked directly at the judge with surprising determination for a 10-year-old boy. Ethan stood in the middle of the courtroom, small but resolute, and said in a clear voice, Your Honor, can I show you something else? Something my mom doesn't know about? Judge Morrison raised her eyebrows in surprise, and Sophia felt her heart skip a beat. What was Ethan talking about? What is it, Ethan? Judge Morrison asked gently. Ethan reached into his pocket and pulled out a small voice recorder, the kind used for school projects. I recorded something else, Ethan said. Something Dad doesn't know I heard. Adrian's face went from pale to white. Robert Blackwell started to object, but Judge Morrison held up her hand for silence. Let the boy speak, she commanded. Ethan held up the voice recorder. A few weeks ago, Dad thought I was asleep upstairs, but I came down to get water and I heard him talking to someone on the phone in his office. I knew he was lying to the judge, so I recorded it through the door. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Patricia looked shocked but pleased. Sophia was frozen, staring at her son who had been braver than anyone could have expected. Play it, Judge Morrison ordered. Ethan pressed the button, and Adrian's voice came through the small speaker, tinny but perfectly clear. The conversation was devastating. Adrian was talking to Melissa, and they were discussing their plan in explicit detail. Adrian's voice came through clearly, saying he'd manipulated the evidence against Sophia, paid people to lie, and coached Ethan on what to say. He laughed about how stupid Sophia was for not seeing it coming, how easy it would be to take everything from her. Melissa's voice chimed in, suggesting they could sell the house as soon as Adrian got full custody and moved to California to start fresh. Adrian agreed enthusiastically, saying once he had full custody, he'd ship Ethan off to boarding school so he and Melissa wouldn't have to deal with raising a kid. The kid's just a pawn anyway, Adrian's recorded voice said dismissively. Once I use him to win the case, he can go live at that academy upstate. Melissa and I will be free. Sophia gasped, covering her mouth with her hand. Even Patricia looked shocked. Judge Morrison's face had gone from sympathetic to furious. When the recording ended, the courtroom was deadly silent. Everyone was staring at Adrian, who looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him whole. Melissa, sitting in the gallery, had tears running down her face, realizing she'd been used as much as anyone. Judge Morrison slowly turned to face Adrian, and her voice when she spoke was cold as ice. Mr. Carter, in my 30 years on the bench, I have seen many despicable acts. But this, she paused, searching for words, this is among the worst. You manipulated evidence, suborned perjury, emotionally abused your own child, and conspired to separate a loving mother from her son, all for your own financial gain and selfish purposes. Adrian tried to speak, but Judge Morrison cut him off. I don't want to hear another word from you. Officers, take Mr. Carter into custody immediately. I'm holding him in contempt of court, and I'm referring this matter to the district attorney for criminal prosecution for perjury, fraud, and conspiracy. 2 bailiffs moved toward Adrian, who suddenly tried to bolt from his seat. He made it 3 steps before they grabbed him, forcing his arms behind his back and handcuffing him. Adrian was screaming now, shouting that it wasn't fair, that Sophia had turned everyone against him, that none of this would hold up on appeal. His voice echoed through the courtroom as they dragged him out, and for the first time in months, Sophia felt a sense of justice being served. Judge Morrison then turned her attention to Robert Blackwell. Mr. Blackwell, I am also referring your conduct to the State Bar. If you knew about any of this fabricated evidence and still presented it to this court, you will be disbarred. If you didn't know, then you failed in your duty to properly vet your client's claims. Either way, you're done here. Blackwell gathered his papers with shaking hands and left the courtroom without a word, his career in ruins. Finally, Judge Morrison looked at Sophia and Ethan, and her expression softened dramatically. Mrs. Carter, Ethan, I apologize that you've had to endure this traumatic process. No one should have to go through what you've experienced. She took a breath and continued, her voice firm and clear. Therefore, this court's ruling is as follows. First, the divorce petition filed by Mr. Adrian Carter is dismissed with prejudice. However, Mrs. Sophia Carter is granted an immediate divorce on grounds of adultery, fraud, and emotional abuse. Sophia felt tears of relief begin to fall. Second, full physical and legal custody of Ethan Carter is awarded to her mother, Sophia Carter. Adrian Carter is denied all custody and visitation rights until such time as he completes court-ordered psychological counseling and demonstrates to this court's satisfaction that he is no longer a danger to his child's emotional well-being, which I find unlikely to ever occur. Judge Morrison continued, her voice growing stronger. Third, all marital assets are awarded to Mrs. Carter, with the exception of Mr. Carter's personal retirement account, which he may keep if there's anything left after he pays his legal fees and potential criminal fines. The family home, vehicles, savings accounts, and all other property are hereby transferred solely to Mrs. Carter. Fourth, Mr. Carter is ordered to pay child support in the maximum amount allowed under state guidelines, as well as spousal support for a period of 10 years, given Mrs. Carter's sacrifice of career advancement to support the family. Judge Morrison picked up her gavel. Finally, Mr. Carter is ordered to have no contact whatsoever with Ethan or Mrs. Carter except through attorneys. Any violation of this order will result in immediate arrest. The gavel came down with a resounding crack. This court is adjourned. Sophia couldn't move. She sat frozen in her chair, trying to process what had just happened. She'd won. She'd won everything. Ethan ran to her, and Sophia pulled him into her arms, sobbing into his hair. You did it, honey. You were so brave. Patricia came over, grinning mildly. Congratulations, Sophia. That was the most decisive victory I've seen in 20 years of practice. As they left the courtroom, Sophia saw Melissa sitting alone in the gallery, mascara running down her face. For a moment, Sophia almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Melissa had been used by Adrian just like everyone else, but she'd also willingly participated in destroying a family. Outside the courthouse, the late afternoon sun was shining, and Sophia felt like she was seeing the world in color for the first time in months. Rachel was waiting for them, having taken the afternoon off to be there for moral support. When she saw Sophia's face, she knew immediately. You won, Rachel said, pulling her into a hug. We won, Sophia corrected, looking down at Ethan. We all won. That evening, back in their home that was now legally theirs alone, Sophia made Ethan's favorite dinner, spaghetti and meatballs. They ate together at the kitchen table, and for the first time in a long time, there was no tension, no walking on eggshells, no fear. After dinner, as Ethan got ready for bed, Sophia tucked him in and sat on the edge of his bed. Ethan, I need to ask you something, Sophia said gently. Why didn't you tell me about that second recording, the one in your dad's office? Ethan looked down at his hands. I was scared. I thought if I told you, Dad would find out somehow and get even madder. I thought maybe if I kept it secret, I could use it when we really needed it." Sophia's heart swelled with pride and sadness. Her 10-year-old son had been carrying that burden alone, protecting her in the only way he knew how. "You shouldn't have had to do that," Sophia said. "That was too much responsibility for someone your age." "But it worked, didn't it?" Ethan looked up at her with hopeful eyes. "We won. Dad can't take me away from you." Sophia smiled through her tears. "We won, and you were incredibly brave. But from now on, no more secrets between us, okay? If something scares you or worries you, you tell me immediately." Ethan nodded, and Sophia kissed his forehead. "I love you so much, honey." "I love you too, Mom," Ethan replied, already getting drowsy. Sophia turned off the light and went downstairs. Sitting on the couch in the quiet house, she thought about everything that had happened, about Adrian's betrayal, about the legal battle, about almost losing her son. But she also thought about how she'd fought back, how she'd found her strength, and how Ethan had shown courage beyond his years. Her phone buzzed with a text from Patricia, informing her that the district attorney's office had officially opened a criminal investigation into Adrian for perjury and fraud, and that charges were likely to be filed within the week. Another text came from Rachel, checking in to make sure she was okay and offering to come over with wine if she needed company. Sophia smiled and texted back that she was fine, better than fine, actually, and that she'd call her tomorrow. Over the next few weeks, life slowly began to normalize. Adrian was formally charged with multiple counts of fraud and perjury, and his bail was set high enough that he couldn't afford to pay it, so he remained in jail awaiting trial. Melissa Thornton left town, reportedly moving back to her home state to escape the scandal. Sophia began the process of truly healing, seeing a therapist to work through the trauma of Adrian's betrayal and the divorce. She and Ethan also did family counseling together to help Ethan process everything he'd witnessed and experienced. Sophia's co-workers at the hospital threw her a divorce party, which was really just an excuse for her friends to celebrate her freedom and new beginning. She was showered with gifts, mostly humorous ones, like a mug that said, "Divorced AF," and a shirt that read, "I survived and all I got was this lousy t-shirt and my entire life back." But the best part of the party was when her supervisor pulled her aside and offered her a promotion, a position as a charge nurse with better hours and better pay. "We've always known you were capable of more," her supervisor said, "but we understood you had family obligations. Now that your situation has changed, we'd love to have you in this role." Sophia accepted immediately, tears in her eyes. For so long, she'd put her career on hold for Adrian's sake, and now she could finally pursue her professional goals without guilt or obstruction. 3 months after the trial, Sophia and Ethan were settling into their new normal. The house felt different now, lighter somehow, as if Adrian's presence had been a dark cloud that finally lifted. Sophia had redecorated, painting over the colors Adrian had chosen, replacing furniture that reminded her of him, making the space truly theirs. Ethan was doing well. His grades had improved, and he seemed happier and more relaxed than he'd been in over a year. He joined a robotics club at school and made new friends. Occasionally, he asked about Adrian, wondering where he was and if he'd ever see him again. Sophia was always honest, explaining that his dad had made very bad choices and needed to face the consequences, but that it didn't mean Adrian didn't love him in his own way. "Do you think Dad ever really loved us?" Ethan asked one evening while they were watching a movie together. Sophia considered the question carefully. "I think your dad loved us as much as he was capable of loving anyone," she said. "But some people don't know how to love properly. They only know how to love themselves." Ethan seemed to accept this answer, snuggling closer to his mom on the couch. 6 months after the trial, Adrian's criminal case went to court, and he was convicted on multiple counts. He was sentenced to 3 years in prison with the possibility of parole after 18 months if he showed genuine remorse and completed various programs. Sophia didn't attend the sentencing hearing. She'd moved on and didn't need to see Adrian's face again. Patricia handled everything and reported back that Adrian had shown no remorse whatsoever, blaming everyone else for his situation. He'll probably serve the full 3 years, maybe longer if he doesn't behave himself in prison. Sophia found she didn't care either way. Adrian was no longer her problem. A year after the trial, Sophia was thriving in ways she never imagined possible. Her promotion at the hospital had led to even more opportunities, and she was now being considered for a director position in the emergency department. She'd paid off all the legal fees with the settlement from Adrian, rebuilt her savings, and even started a college fund for Ethan. She'd also started dating again. Nothing serious yet, just casual coffee dates and dinners with men she met through friends or online. It felt strange at first, putting herself out there after 12 years of marriage, but also exciting and liberating. One date in particular stood out. A firefighter named Marcus, who had a great sense of humor and was wonderful with kids. They'd been seeing each other for a few months, taking things slow, and Ethan really liked him. But Sophia wasn't rushing into anything. She'd learned her lesson about seeing the warning signs and trusting her instincts. Ethan was flourishing too. He'd grown taller, more confident, and more mature than any 11-year-old should have to be. He rarely mentioned Adrian anymore, and when he did, it was without the pain that used to cloud his voice. He was simply acknowledging a fact of his past, not dwelling on it. One Saturday afternoon, Sophia and Ethan were in the garage going through old boxes, deciding what to keep and what to donate. Ethan opened a box labeled Family Photos and pulled out their wedding album. "Can I look at this?" Ethan asked. Sophia hesitated, then nodded. They sat on the garage floor together, flipping through the pages of a wedding that felt like it had happened to different people. There was Sophia in her white dress, young and radiant and so hopeful. There was Adrian in his tuxedo, handsome and charming, the perfect groom. "You looked so happy," Ethan observed. "I was. At least, I thought I was. I loved your dad very much back then. Or at least, I loved who I thought he was." "Do you hate him now?" Ethan asked, looking up at her with those perceptive eyes. Sophia thought about it. Really thought about it. "No," she said finally. "I don't hate him. I'm angry at what he did, and I'm sad about the time I wasted, but I don't hate him. Hate takes too much energy, and I'd rather spend that energy on building our future than dwelling on the past." Ethan smiled. "That's a good answer, Mom." "Thanks, honey." Sophia ruffled his hair. They closed the wedding album and put it back in the box. Sophia wasn't ready to throw it away completely. It was still a part of her history, but she also didn't need to display it anymore. That evening, after Ethan was in bed, Sophia sat on her back porch with a cup of tea, looking at the stars. She thought about where she'd been a year ago, broken and scared and fighting for her life. She thought about the mysterious photo that had started everything, and she realized she'd never found out who sent it. Whoever they were, they'd done her a favor, opening her eyes to the truth before she wasted any more years on Adrian. Sophia pulled out her phone and looked at the unknown number from that original text. On impulse, she sent a message asking simply, "Who are you? Thank you for telling me the truth." She didn't expect a response, but 5 minutes later, her phone buzzed. The reply was short but revealing, finally solving the mystery that had haunted her. The message explained that the sender was a woman who'd also been hurt by Adrian years ago, someone he'd dated before Sophia, someone he'd lied to and manipulated. She'd seen him with Melissa and recognized his pattern, and she couldn't stand by and watch him destroy another woman the way he'd destroyed her. Sophia stared at the message, feeling a complicated mix of emotions. Gratitude to this stranger who'd cared enough to warn her, sadness for the woman who'd suffered at Adrian's hands before her, and vindication that her instincts about Adrian had been right all along. She typed back a heartfelt thank you, expressing how the warning had changed her life for the better. The stranger responded with well wishes and a final piece of advice: to never let anyone make Sophia feel small again, to trust herself, and to remember that she was stronger than she knew. Sophia saved the conversation and then deleted the unknown number, closing that chapter forever. 2 years after the trial, Sophia stood in the backyard of their home, which she had professionally landscaped with a beautiful garden. She was hosting a small party to celebrate Ethan's 12th birthday, and their yard was filled with friends, kids from Ethan's school running around playing games, parents chatting and laughing, and Marcus helping man the grill. Rachel stood beside Sophia, watching the scene with satisfaction. "Look at you," Rachel said, nudging her friend. "You did it. You built a whole new life." "We did it," Sophia corrected. "I couldn't have gotten through any of this without you." "That's what best friends are for," Rachel replied, clinking her glass against Sophia's. "But seriously, Soph, I'm so proud of you. You took the worst thing that ever happened to you and turned it into something beautiful." Sophia watched Ethan laughing with his friends, completely carefree and happy, and felt a warmth in her chest that had nothing to do with the summer sun. "You know what the funny thing is?" Sophia said. "I'm grateful now, not for what Adrian did, but for the fact that it happened before it was too late. I got out. I got to rebuild. Some people stay in bad marriages for decades and waste their whole lives. I only wasted a few years, and I got Ethan out of it, so it wasn't a total waste." "That's a healthy perspective," Rachel agreed. "Very healthy." Later that evening, after the party ended and the guests had gone home, Sophia and Ethan cleaned up together, gathering paper plates and deflating balloons. "Best birthday ever," Ethan declared, carrying a bag of trash to the garage. "I'm glad, honey," Sophia said. "You deserve it." As they finished cleaning, Ethan suddenly turned to Sophia with a serious expression. "Mom, can I tell you something?" "Of course, always," Sophia replied. "I'm glad Dad's not here anymore. Is not bad? Am I a bad person for feeling that way?" Sophia knelt down to Ethan's eye level, even though he was almost as tall as her now. "No, honey, you're not a bad person at all. Your dad hurt both of us, and it's okay to be glad that he's not in our lives anymore. That doesn't make you bad. It makes you human." Ethan nodded, looking relieved. "I just wanted to make sure." "You're a good kid, Ethan, the best kid, and I'm so lucky to be your mom." Sophia pulled him into a hug. 3 years after the trial, Sophia received a letter from Adrian. He'd been released from prison after serving his full sentence, having never shown the remorse required for early parole. The letter was long and rambling, full of half apologies and excuses. He claimed he'd changed, that prison had given him time to think, that he wanted to be part of Ethan's life again. Sophia read the letter twice, then called Patricia. "What do I do with this?" "What do you want to do?" Patricia countered. "I want to protect Ethan. That's my only concern." "Then file it away," Patricia advised. "If Adrian wants to petition the court for visitation rights, he can try, but given his criminal record and history of manipulation, it's unlikely any judge would grant them. Until then, you're under no obligation to respond to him." Sophia followed Patricia's advice. She put the letter in a file folder, told Ethan that his father had contacted her, and asked Ethan how he felt about it. Ethan thought about it for a long moment, then said, "I don't want to see him, Mom. Maybe someday, when I'm older and can decide for myself, but not now." "Then we won't," Sophia assured him. "Your feelings matter most here." Adrian sent a few more letters over the next few months, each one growing more desperate and angry when he received no response. Eventually, they stopped coming. Sophia heard through Patricia's connections that Adrian had left the state, supposedly to start over somewhere new. She hoped, for everyone's sake, that he really had changed, but she doubted it. People like Adrian rarely do. 5 years after the trial, Sophia stood in a different courtroom, but this time she was smiling. She was wearing a simple but elegant white dress, and beside her stood Marcus, in a suit holding her hand. Ethan, now 14 and almost as tall as Marcus, stood beside them as their witness. Judge Morrison, who had presided over Sophia's divorce all those years ago, smiled at them from the bench. "It's nice to see you again under much happier circumstances, Mrs. Carter," Judge Morrison said warmly. "It's actually Ms. Carter now, Your Honor," Sophia replied. "And yes, much happier." Judge Morrison performed a brief but beautiful wedding ceremony. When she pronounced them husband and wife, Marcus kissed Sophia gently and Ethan cheered. After the ceremony, they had a small reception at a nice restaurant with close friends and family. Rachel, of course, was there, crying happy tears and giving a toast about how she always knew Sophia would find happiness again. Patricia Hall also attended, having become a friend over the years beyond just being Sophia's lawyer. She raised her glass and said, "To Sophia, the strongest woman I know, and to Marcus, who better treat her right or he'll answer to me." Everyone laughed, and Marcus promised he would. As the evening wound down and Sophia and Marcus prepared to leave for their honeymoon, a weekend getaway since they both had work the following week, Sophia pulled Ethan aside. "Are you sure you're okay staying with Rachel?" she asked. "Mom, I'm 14, not 4, Ethan said with an eye roll. "I'll be fine. Go enjoy your honeymoon." I know, Sophia laughed. "I just worry. You always worry," Ethan said affectionately. "It's part of your charm." Sophia hugged her son tightly. "I love you so much, honey. Thank you for being patient with me through all of this. The divorce, the healing, the dating, all of it. I know it wasn't easy. It was worth it," Ethan said. "Marcus is great. He makes you happy. That makes me happy." "You're pretty wise for 14, Sophia observed. "I learned from the best," Ethan replied, hugging her back. As Sophia and Marcus drove away from the restaurant, Sophia looked back at Ethan standing with Rachel, waving goodbye, and felt a sense of completeness she'd never felt before, not even in the early days of her marriage to Adrian. This was real. This was built on honesty, trust, and genuine love. On their wedding night, lying in bed in a cozy bed and breakfast, Marcus turned to Sophia and asked, "Do you ever think about him, Adrian?" Sophia considered the question. "Honestly, no, not really. Sometimes I think about what happened, but more in terms of how it shaped me, not about him as a person. He's just gone, and I'm okay with that." "Good," Marcus said, pulling her closer. "Because you deserve to be happy, Soph. You and Ethan both." "We are happy," Sophia said with certainty. "We really are." 7 years after the trial, Ethan graduated high school with honors. Sophia sat in the audience, Marcus beside her, watching their son walk across the stage to receive his diploma. She thought about everything they'd been through to get to this moment, and she felt an overwhelming sense of pride. After the ceremony, as families gathered for photos, Sophia noticed Ethan looking at his phone with a strange expression. "Everything okay, honey?" she asked. Ethan looked up. "I just got a message from Dad. Well, from someone claiming to be him. It's a new number." Sophia's heart sank. "What did he say?" "He said congratulations on my graduation and that he's sorry for everything." Ethan read from his phone. "He wants to know if I'd be willing to meet him sometime." Sophia and Marcus exchanged glances. This was Ethan's decision to make now. He was 18, an adult. "What do you want to do?" Sophia asked carefully. Ethan stared at the message for a long moment, then looked up at his mother. "I want to block the number," he said finally. "I spent too many years of my childhood dealing with his manipulation. I don't want to spend my adulthood doing the same thing." Sophia felt relief wash over her. "Are you sure?" "I'll support whatever you decide." "I'm sure, Mom," Ethan said firmly. "You're my family. Marcus is my family. Dad stopped being my family the day he tried to take me away from you." He blocked the number right there, and they never heard from Adrian again. 10 years after the trial, Sophia was the director of the emergency department at City General Hospital. She'd worked her way up through dedication and skill, earning the respect of everyone she worked with. She'd also started a support group for women going through difficult divorces, using her own experience to help others navigate the legal and emotional challenges. Ethan was in college studying engineering, thriving academically and socially. He visited home every few weeks, and he and Marcus had developed a close relationship, more like friends than stepfather and stepson. One evening, Sophia was going through old files, deciding what to keep and what to shred, when she came across the folder containing Adrian's letters and the original divorce documents. She read through them one more time, seeing them with the perspective of a decade of distance. What struck her most was how much she'd changed. The woman described in Adrian's cruel words, the woman he'd tried to paint as a failure, bore no resemblance to who she actually was or who she'd become. She'd never been a failure. She'd been a devoted mother, a skilled nurse, a faithful wife. Adrian's lies had said more about him than they ever said about her. Sophia took the entire folder to the fireplace, lit a fire, and watched the papers burn. She didn't need them anymore. They were evidence of a past she'd overcome, and holding on to them served no purpose. As the flames consumed the last remnants of her life with Adrian, Sophia felt lighter than air. On the couch beside her, Marcus asked what she was thinking about. "I was just thinking," Sophia said, "about how grateful I am for that anonymous photo. If I'd never received it, I might still be with Adrian, still being slowly destroyed by his lies and manipulation. I might have wasted my entire life." "Do you ever wonder who sent it?" Marcus asked. "I know who sent it. Another of Adrian's victims. Someone who saw history repeating and decided to intervene." "That was brave of her," Marcus observed. "It was," Sophia agreed. "And I tried to thank her, but she disappeared after that. I hope she's doing okay, wherever she is. I hope she found her own happy ending, like I did." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the fire. And Sophia realized something profound. Adrian hadn't destroyed her. He'd tried. He'd given it his best effort, but he'd failed. Instead, he'd inadvertently given her the greatest gift possible. He'd forced her to find her own strength, to stand up for herself and her son, to build a life on her own terms. In trying to break her, Adrian had made her unbreakable. That night, Sophia dreamed of the courtroom. But in the dream, everything was different. Instead of being afraid, she was confident. Instead of being a victim, she was a warrior. And when Dream Adrian tried to attack her character, Dream Ethan stood up with his recordings and his truth, and together they won. Sophia woke up smiling, knowing that the dream was simply her subconscious confirming what she already knew in her heart. She'd won. Not just the court case, but the booger battle. She'd won her freedom, her happiness, and her future. And that was worth more than any settlement or any judge's ruling. Sophia Carter had survived, thrived, and become stronger than she ever imagined possible. And she would never, ever let anyone make her feel small again. The story that began with betrayal and heartbreak ended with triumph and joy. Sophia had learned that sometimes the worst things that happen to us are actually the universe's way of pushing us towards our best life. If Adrian hadn't betrayed her, she never would have left. If she never left, she never would have discovered her own strength. And if she never discovered her own strength, she never would have become the woman she was today, successful, confident, loved, and most importantly, free. As Sophia looked around at the life she'd built, the successful career, the happy son, the loving husband, the supportive friends, she knew one thing for certain. She'd made it. And she'd done it on her own terms. The end was really just the beginning. Did you like the story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story. With love and respect.